Some time ago, I made a video demonstrating a plan where I was trying to utilize as much of the bandwidth that my ISP was going to give me. So my ISP is Virgin, but essentially I wanted to kind of get a way that I could get that bandwidth, that 300 megabytes extra from the router. And I came up with a little bit of a plan. So my first plan was essentially to get a better modem. So the modem that I had initially was the Hub 4, and the modem that I have now is the Hub 5. Now, why is that significant? The Hub 5 has a 2.5 gig Ethernet port. Now, my network doesn't support 2.5 gig in its current state because I have no switches or routers or anything like that which have the 2.5 gig port. So that leads me on to the first thing. I bought a little switch here, and the switch is called the vmware 2.5 gig smart switch. So this is one step in my puzzle. So why is this significant? Well, the reason why is because this particular switch, if I get it out, not only supports 2.5 gig, but it also got me thinking. It got me thinking because I haven't even unboxed it yet. There we go, it's still in the shiny little packaging. But it got me thinking because this particular switch has a 10 gigabit Ethernet port. So, join me as I unbox this, but I mean, you don't really need to see me unboxing it, but stay tuned. Alright, here we go. So, it has, I'll just leave that down there and zoom in a bit. And pan down. There we go. Good old Sony autofocus. But you can see that there's a little plug here for a 10 gig SFP. So what we have here is that we've got 8 PoE ports. So these are all PoE. I believe these are PoE-AT. I believe, is that right? PoE-AT? Oh, these are just PoE. Okay, just normal PoE. They're not PoE plus. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So they're PoE-AT. They are PoE-AT. They're PoE-AT and AF compliant. So that is IEEE 802.3 AF and AT. So I'm pretty sure that means it can deliver up to about 30 watts, I think, of power. About 30 watts of power on each. So that means that we can plug in up to 8 Wi-Fi access ports, or you could power up some Raspberry Pis with it through PoE or that sort of thing, right? Now the cool thing about it as well is that it has a VLAN tab. This was another reason why I bought the switch. So the idea here is that my Wi-Fi runs on VLAN 9, and what I want to do is essentially do something in Cisco called SWIMO AC VLAN 9. And what that means is that I want to have one of the ports running in access mode on VLAN 9, so that way I can choose whether or not to tag the frame of tag the Ethernet frame with a VLAN ID of 9, or not to tag the frame on VLAN ID of 9. So in other words, it's non-tagged, it's an untagged frame, but the access point will then receive that frame and say, right, okay, I need to go on VLAN 9 essentially. The idea as well here is that this is going to be on the default VLAN of 1, so that way I don't need to kind of mess around too much with the configuration. It's just that this switch will be able to communicate with the access point on that VLAN and then pass the traffic up to the router, essentially. So the way that I think this is going to work is that I'm going to have a fiber on here with an SFP, and then I'm going to have one of these ports nearby the access point, is what I'm thinking currently. So the next question is, well, how does that work? How is that going to connect? Okay, so the next part of my master plan is to, I think that's in here. Yeah, here we go. It's in this box here. Actually, no, it's not in this box. It's not in this box. Before I get to that box, let's get to this box. Ooh, you want me to see that, but never mind, I'll blur that out later. Okay, and it's in this box here, which is still sealed because I just got it today. But if you look closely, focus, Come on, Sony. But there you see a media converter. Now, remember how I mentioned that the modem only had RJ45 and not an SFP, which I kind of wanted? This is what's going to kind of help me with that. So the idea here is that I use this box from fs.com. Now, I'm not sponsored by FS or anything, but I do like their service, and I believe I'm going to like their products as well because their service was absolutely awesome. There we go, fs.com. And this is what I got, the media converter. Right, so going back to what I was saying, we have an SFP. Ooh, come on. Alright, so going back to what I was saying. So this is the SFP that I've got, and this one is for the Intel. Okay, so I'll just zoom in on that. Okay, yeah, so this is for the Intel. Now the idea is that this is an 850 nanometer SFP of wavelength. If I can zoom in, let's try this again. Spot focus, come on. Oh dear, okay, so. Okay, so in my hand I've got the 10 gigabit NIC. Version is on the screen now for you. And essentially this is from fs.com. This has been flashed with Intel firmware. And this is an 850 nanometer, 300 meter capable SFP. And the idea behind this is that this will make the laser, in other words, this will make the signal that is necessary in order for it to be received on the other side. And the other side is where I'm going to have the generic SFP. Now, when I talked to the guys down at fs.com, they told me that the reason why this works is because the wavelengths are the same, and it also is because, well, the FS rated media converter supports generic firmware, right? I don't need the FS based firmware. So that was one of the things that was quite relevant, and they're both 10 gigabit and they are 850 nanometers. Right, so that's all in order. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that, what do I want to say? Oh, multimode, right, yeah. Okay, multimode versus single mode fiber. So, just in case if I haven't covered multimode and single mode fiber, I went with multimode fiber instead of non-multimode fiber, and I forgot the name of it. So that was the one that was there. Oh right, yeah, single mode fiber. Yeah, single mode fiber. So single mode fiber. So what was the difference? So the difference is that there's a cost difference. So multimode is a little bit cheaper, and single mode fiber goes a longer distance because the internal diameter. So in other words, the core is a little bit smaller, which means that the wavelength, sorry, the light itself can do more total internal reflection, which means that you get a longer signal. Well, sorry, you don't get a longer signal, you get more distance. You don't get a longer, well, I suppose you get a longer signal, but you get more distance out of the cable. Whereas in multimode, you get a certain amount of distance because the core is a bit bigger, which means that it's more which means that you can do things like light dispersion. So in other words, you can do things like light dispersion, which means that you can send more wavelengths down the pipe, which means that you can do things like division wave multiplexing, which essentially means that you can get multiple bands of light, aggregate them together, and then push them out as a single unit of light, which is pretty cool, and you can do other things like that. So that's the reason why also that you can use the same infrastructure. In other words, you can use the same fibers without having to worry about the bandwidth necessarily. Okay, cool. So the last part is the NIC. So I got these off eBay, but these are bloody good NICs, if I do say so myself. And these are, what are these? Come on. See if I've got an unopened one. Oh, these are unopened and opened. Opened. Right, okay, cool. So this is... There we go. The Intel ETH networking adapter E10XXVDA4. So this is a 25 gigabit and 10 gigabit capable SFP28 card. So the card itself looks like this. Like that. And it's a quad port SFP28. So why did I buy 3 of these? So my thinking is, well, I can use one for VMware, right? So I could have it running as a pfSense box. That was my idea. Can use Terraform to create the pfSense box. And then the idea that I had was, rather than trying to connect it up to the switch, so in other words, rather than trying to connect it up to the vSwitch, which is not really what I really want to have this as an individual card, was to do a pass-through of the card directly. So that's what I was thinking. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I always have the option to create a physical pfSense box if the need comes. And now the idea as well is that I've got another cable coming which will do a aggregation. So in other words, I'm going to get my Arista, take that 100 gigabit and split it into 25 gigs, and then I will mount it into here. I can also use one of the cards for TrueNAS. So I've got a TrueNAS NAS, and the idea is that I can then use that aggregation, even though it's on hard drives, so that I can get extra performance if need be when I switch over to SSD and NVMe, right? Because I get the IOPS then. So that's the idea there. Okay, so that's kind of part 2 of the video in terms of the setup. Join me for part 3, where we'll be installing and going through some of the more finer details of this particular setup. Thank you for watching. One other thing as well, the Venom, so in other words this, right, it comes with its own power supply bank. So what you'll get inside of the box is you also get this power supply, and you also get the plug. So I'm in the UK, so I've got UK standard plug. Alright, that's one done. And then in terms of the FS box, which was over here, that, oh, here we go. The FS box, right? You also get the power supply in there as well. Okay, power supply, user manual. You also get the user manual for the Venom. Here you go. That's a quick start guide. You also get that as well. But yeah, just quick little update. Don't really want to waste too much time on that, but you get the idea. I think you all know how to, if you're watching this video, you pretty much know how to configure stuff in terms of putting things together, like power supplies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to waste too much time kind of explaining that, but yeah, there you go, just a quick little update for you.